leaned back in the mediation chair, as if the room belonged to him. My sister signed a repayment plan, he said. Knows that this whole thing is being exaggerated because she wants the house. Across the table, his mother nodded so quickly that one of her silver earrings struck her neck. Melissa kept her eyes on the polished wood. Our attorneys said nothing. I slid one page from the blue folder in front of me. Maya, my lawyer, placed it beside settlement proposal. Before we discuss the house, she said, we should clarify whether the transfer was ever a loan. Smile held for another second. Then Maya read the message he had sent through the bank's secure portal 3 months earlier. I understand the withdrawal is non-qualified. The funds are a gift to my sister for business stabilization. The beneficiary will not be reimbursed. The room became so quiet that I heard the wall clock click. Stared at the page. That's not the whole conversation. It is the whole message, Maya said. I opened the folder again. And this, I told him, is the document your sister signed saying the same thing. That was the moment my husband realized the bank had remembered what he expected me to forget. For most of our 18-year marriage, I believed, and I were careful with money for the same reason. Our daughter Lily was 17 and halfway through her senior year. She wanted to study occupational therapy. She had been talking about it since a school volunteer program paired her with children recovering from injuries. She had applied to 4 colleges, but Ohio State was her first choice because she could stay close to home and keep her weekend job at a neighborhood bookstore. The account we called Lily's College Fund was a 529 plan in its name with Lily as the beneficiary. We had opened it when she was 3. At the time, handled more of the investment paperwork because his employer offered financial planning seminars, and I handled our household budget because I was better at tracking details. Over 14 years, the account grew to a little more than $93,000. Not all of it came from us. When my mother died, she left me a small life insurance payment. I used $28,000 of it for Lily's education because my mother had been a school secretary who believed education was the one gift no relative could take back. I remembered telling that as we sat at our kitchen table. This part is from Mom, I had said. I want Lily to know that someday. Placed his hand over mine. She will. That promise was one reason. The account meant more to me than the number on the screen. His family treated money differently. His mother believed money was proof of loyalty. She rarely asked directly. Instead, she described a problem in enough detail that someone else felt cruel for not solving it. His younger sister Melissa had been the center of those problems for as long as I knew them. 3 years earlier, Melissa bought an old brick event venue outside Dublin and renamed it Juniper Hall. Mentioned it one night while we loaded the dishwasher. Melissa may need a short-term bridge, he said. I handed him a plate. How short? Maybe 6 months. How much? He shrugged. She's still calculating. That was the first sign I missed. Never shrugged about numbers. I told him we could not use Lily's education account or our emergency savings. He said he understood. He even looked offended that I believed he needed the warning. I'm not going to risk our family to rescue a business, he said. 2 weeks later, he changed our bank statements from paper delivery to electronic. He said it would reduce clutter. A month after that, I stopped receiving balance alerts from the 529 account. I assumed the custodian had changed its notification settings. Told me he was still receiving the quarterly statements and everything looked normal. Then Lily received her first acceptance email. She ran into the kitchen crying, holding her laptop against her chest, lifted her off the floor. I opened sparkling cider. We took photographs under the crooked paper banner I had saved from her kindergarten graduation. That night, after Lily went upstairs, I said, we should review the 529 and decide how much she can use each year. Rinsed 3 glasses at the sink. After bonus season, he said, the deposit is due soon. We have time. He did not turn around. The cold water kept running over a glass that was already clean. I discovered the missing money because our basement flooded. A pipe behind the laundry sink split during a February freeze. By the time I heard the water, it had crossed half the floor and soaked the bottom row of storage boxes. The plumber shut off the line and told me the repair would cost about $1,800, not including the damaged drywall. It was exactly the kind of expense our emergency savings existed to cover. I opened our joint high-yield savings account on my phone. The balance should have been a little over $38,000. It was $14,000 and change. There were 3 transfers to Price. $8,000, $6,000, $10,000, all within 5 weeks. I called at work. Did you transfer $24,000 to your mother? There was a pause long enough to answer the question. I was going to talk to you tonight. Did you transfer it? Yes, but it's temporary. My hand tightened around the phone. You said we weren't using our emergency savings. I said we weren't risking our family. We are. Melissa has a refinance in progress. You sent it to. She's coordinating the payments. For what? The tax lien and vendors. We need to talk now. I'm walking into a client meeting. Then walk out. Don't turn this into a crisis. You removed $24,000 without telling me, I said. It is already a crisis. Promise to come home early. He arrived after 7. By then, I had paid the plumber with a credit card and moved the wet boxes upstairs. Lily was at a friend's house working on a scholarship application. I waited at the kitchen table with the account history printed in front of me. Took off his coat slowly. Before you start, he said, the money is coming back. When? After Melissa closes the refinance. What date? She doesn't control the lender. Then there is no date. I asked to see the refinance documents. Said Melissa's accountant had them. I asked for the name of the lender. He told me I was focusing on the wrong thing. Then he made the mistake that changed the conversation. If you had been more supportive from the beginning, he said, I wouldn't have had to handle it this way. I laughed once not because it was funny, but because my mind rejected the shape of his logic. You stole our agreement, I said, and now you are blaming me for making you hide it. I didn't steal anything. What do you call taking money and concealing it? He stood. I'm not doing this while you are emotional. He walked toward the stairs. I followed him into the hallway. We are not finished. He turned so sharply that I stopped. Fine, he said. You want the whole picture. The savings account was not enough. A pressure formed behind my ribs. What does that mean? He looked away. I opened the 529 app before he answered. My password did not work. Reached for my phone, I stepped back. What did you do? What did you do to Lily's account? He lowered his voice. I made a withdrawal. The room seemed to tilt. How much? He did not answer. I reset the password through my email, but the security code went to a phone number ending in its last 4 digits. He had changed the verification contact. How much? $71,850. I had to repeat the number in my head before it became real. $71,850. It's not gone. It is helping the business survive. That was Lily's college money. She will still go to college. With what? We have income, she can take federal loans, she'll get scholarships. I stood there looking at the man who had held our daughter under a paper graduation banner. You gave your sister my mother's money. His face changed. Only slightly, but I saw it. That money had been in the account for years, he said. You cannot separate $1 from another. I can. You are making this sentimental because you want leverage. I felt something inside me become very still. Show me the withdrawal statement. Tomorrow. Tonight. I don't have it here. You changed the security number. Because you kept losing access code. I had never lost an access code. He continued speaking, but the words moved past me. The basement had flooded. The emergency fund was missing. And the education account my mother helped build had been reduced to a number that would not cover 1 year. That was the first night I understood that my husband was not trying to solve a family crisis. He had already decided which family mattered. By Saturday morning, knew I was angry. Said he had not called her, but at 9:15 she sent a message asking us to come for lunch. When I did not answer, she called Lily. That was how operated. A request ignored by one person became an emergency delivered through someone younger. Lily came into the bedroom holding her phone. Grandma says everyone is worried about you. I was sitting on the edge of the bed with the printed account statements beside me. Did she say why? She said you misunderstood a family investment. I closed my eyes. Your grandmother should not involve you in this. Is this about Aunt Melissa? Appeared in the doorway. We're handling it. Lily looked between us. Handling what? He gave me a warning glance. I refused to lie, but I also refused to tell our daughter that her college savings had been taken. While she stood in our bedroom wearing a sweatshirt from the school, she hoped to attend. "There is a financial problem," I said. "Your father and I are working through it. Does it affect college?" Answered before I could. "No." The certainty in his voice frightened me more than hesitation would have. At his house that afternoon, Melissa was already at the dining table. She wore a cream sweater and the exhausted expression she used whenever other people were expected to rescue her. I asked Melissa for the refinance application, the expected closing date, and a written repayment schedule. She said her accountant was finalizing everything. "What is the lender's name?" "We are comparing options." "Then there is no refinance in progress." "There are conversations." "That is not the same thing." I looked at, "Is that what you told them?" He rubbed his forehead. "Can we lower the temperature?" Began describing the venue's busy wedding season and the increased revenue expected by summer. He spoke in projections, not facts. Every time I asked for a document, someone accused me of being cold. Finally, I asked one question. "Was the money a loan or a gift?" "A loan," said. At the same time said, "Family does not keep score." The answers collided in the center of the table. Melissa stared into her soup. I stood. "Send me the signed repayment agreement by Monday." His voice sharpened. "You are humiliating your husband." "No, I am asking what he did with our daughter's money." He followed me into the front hall. "You came here looking for a fight," he said. "I came looking for proof. You are treating my family like criminals. You changed the account security and hid withdrawals. Because I knew you would react exactly like this." That sentence stayed with me. He had not hidden the transfers because he feared my reaction. He used my predictable refusal as permission to remove my choice. On the drive home, he proposed what he called a solution. We could apply for a home equity line of credit. Our house had appreciated significantly and we owed less than half its value. We could borrow $80,000, put most of it back into the 529, repair the basement, and repay the line after Melissa refinanced. "You want us to borrow against our house to replace money you gave away. It would make Lily whole immediately. It would move the loss from one account to another. It would buy time. For Melissa. For everyone." I watched the winter fields pass outside the window. What happens if her refinance fails? It won't. What happens if it does? He gripped the steering wheel. "We tighten the budget." "You mean Lily and I tighten the budget?" "That's unfair." "No, what is unfair is making a 17-year-old borrow for college because her aunt wanted to preserve an event venue." He did not speak for the rest of the drive. By Monday, no repayment agreement arrived. Instead, placed a HELOC application on the kitchen counter with yellow tabs showing where I should sign. I did not sign the application. I moved it from the counter to his desk and placed a note on top. "Before I sign anything, I need complete statements, transfer records, the 529 withdrawal confirmation, and a written repayment agreement from Melissa." Read the note that evening. "You know the rate can change," he said. "So can my answer." He dropped the papers onto the desk. "You are using paperwork to punish me." "I am using paperwork to understand a $95,000 decision." "We do not have time for this." "Then you should have talked to me before making it." On Thursday, I asked him to meet me at a quiet coffee shop near his office. Public places had always made us more civil. I brought a legal pad with 4 questions. How much had been transferred? Where was it now? What written obligation required repayment? What steps would protect Lily if Juniper Hall failed? Looked at the page and gave a tired smile. "This is a marriage, not a deposition." "Then answer as my husband." He stirred his coffee for a long time. I offered a compromise. If Melissa signed a formal promissory note with a realistic payment schedule and security against the venue, I would consider using $10,000 from our remaining savings to cover the basement and immediate college deposit. Would restore the account through payroll deductions and his annual bonuses. We would attend financial counseling. No HELOC. No more transfers. It was not a generous offer. It was more generous than he deserved. He rejected it. "You want me to let my mother lose hers?" I looked up at him. "Did receive a foreclosure notice." He hesitated. "Not yet." "Then why do you keep saying her house is being lost?" "Because that is where this leads." "Show me the guarantee she signed." "I don't have it." "Have you seen it?" Another pause. Melissa explained it. I put down the pen. For the first time, I considered that might not know where all the money had gone. That possibility should have made him less guilty. It did not. It meant he had taken our daughter's future, based on stories he had not. That night called me directly. "You need to sign the loan," she said without greeting me. "No," is becoming physically ill from the stress. Then he should stop asking me to secure his decision with our house. "You have always kept yourself separate from this family. I have paid for vacations, medical bills, and 2 of Melissa's previous emergencies." His voice became quiet. "Lily will be fine, she is bright. Melissa has one chance to save everything she built. Lily had one chance to use the money we built for her. You are making a child more important than the whole family." The sentence was so honest that I almost thanked her. "I am making my child more important than your daughter's business," I said. "You will regret dividing this family." "No, I regret financing it." She hung up. The next morning, I told that if he did not provide every document by 6 that evening, I would contact the 529 custodian and bank myself. He laughed. "The account is in my name. That does not prevent me from asking questions about marital funds." "You are threatening me. I am giving you one final chance to tell the truth." At 5:48, he sent me a spreadsheet. It listed the transfers under a heading titled Temporary Family Loan. There were no bank confirmations, no signatures, no dates of repayment, and no explanation for why the 529 security number had been changed. At 6, I called the bank. The representative could not disclose everything because was the registered owner, but she could confirm that account notices had been changed through the secure portal. "Can you tell me when?" I asked. She gave me the date. It was the morning after I told we would never use Lily's fund to rescue Juniper Hall. Before ending the call, the representative said something that changed the direction of my search. "Any secure messages sent through the portal remain archived with the account." I wrote the sentence down. Then I walked upstairs to the small office, and I shared and looked at the scanner beside his desk. The scanner automatically saved copies to our family cloud drive. I had set it up that way during tax season 2 years earlier. Had forgotten. At 11:30, I found the 529 withdrawal confirmation. 3 files later, I found a 1-page document titled Gift Acknowledgement. It was addressed to a commercial lender. I read it twice. Melissa Grant acknowledged receiving $62,000 from Price & Price as a personal gift to support Juniper Hall. The document stated that the funds were not borrowed, carried no repayment obligation, and would not create a lien or ownership interest in the business. Signature appeared at the bottom as a co-giver. Melissa's signature appeared beneath it. The scan date was 2 days before the first transfer from our emergency account. I saved copies to a new encrypted drive and emailed them to an account did not know about. Then I searched the folder again. A scan labeled Juniper Vendor included an email chain printed above an invoice. Melissa wrote to that was worried I might make this legal. Replied, "We'll calm down once Lily gets her scholarship offers. Keep all paperwork between us until the HELOC is signed." I stopped breathing for a moment. The home equity loan was not a solution they had developed after I discovered the missing money. It had been part of the plan. I printed the email, then immediately turned off the printer because the sound seemed loud enough to wake the entire street. At 7 the next morning, I called the 529 custodian again. This time I asked how could obtain a copy of the archived secure messages. The representative told me the account owner could download them or authorize release. She also gave me the fraud and legal process address for subpoenas and court orders. I did not accuse of fraud. I did not yet know which laws applied, and I refused to make claims simply because I was furious. Instead, I scheduled a consultation with a family law attorney. Maya's office was on the 3rd floor of a brick building near downtown. She listened without interrupting as I explained the accounts, the transfer, the altered notices, and the HELOC. When I finished, she asked one question. "Do you want to repair the marriage, or do you want to protect yourself while you decide?" "I want to protect Lily." "That is not the same answer." I looked at my hands. "I don't know if the marriage can be repaired." "That is honest, we can work with honest." She reviewed the gift acknowledgement. "This is useful." Then she read the printed email about the HELOC. "This is more useful. Can we get the bank message? If a case is filed, we can request records through formal discovery and if necessary, subpoena the custodian. Do not access his account without permission. Do not guess his password. Do not delete or alter anything. I won't. She gave me a list. Open an individual checking account for my income. Redirect my paycheck. Freeze my credit with all 3 bureaus. Download statements for every joint account I could legally access. Photograph household valuables. Obtain a current mortgage statement. Remove important personal documents from the house and place them in a safe deposit box or with someone I trusted. Do not drain joint accounts. Do not retaliate. Do not post online. Calm is an asset, Maya said. Do not spend it all in one argument. Before I left, she asked whether had ever threatened me physically. No. Controlled your access to money before. Not that I knew. That last phrase matters. I completed most of the list within 48 hours. The hardest part was telling Lily. I waited until Sunday afternoon when was at's house. I asked Lily to sit with me at the kitchen table. There is something you deserve to hear from me, I said. Her face changed immediately. It is the college account. I nodded. How bad? I told her the amount remaining. For several seconds, she stared at the grain of the table. Then she said, Dad told me you wanted me to choose a cheaper school. The pain in my chest became sharp. When? Last week, he said you were panicking and blaming Grandma. I never said that. I know. How? Because he kept telling me not to ask you. She looked up, her eyes were wet but her voice was steady. Did he use it for Aunt Melissa? Yes. All of it. Most of it. Lily pressed both hands over her mouth. I moved to the chair beside her. You did nothing wrong. Your education is not the cause of this conflict and you are not responsible for fixing it. What am I supposed to do? We make a new plan. Applications, scholarships, payment options. And I am working to recover what was taken. Are you divorcing him? I have not decided. She nodded slowly. Then she said something I was not prepared to hear. I think he already decided something, he just didn't tell us. That evening, returned home carrying a folder from. He placed a new HELOC application on the counter. This time, my signature line had already been marked with a small blue X. I filed for divorce the following Tuesday. The petition requested temporary orders preventing either of us from transferring, borrowing against, hiding, or disposing of major marital assets. It also requested financial records related to the 529 distribution and payments to and Melissa. Maya arranged for it to be served at his office. I did not enjoy that. I knew he would be embarrassed. I also knew that if he was served at home, Lily might be present and I would not risk turning her into an audience. Before he received the papers, I moved my mother's jewelry, Lily's birth certificate, our passports, and my original life insurance documents to a safe deposit box. I left personal property untouched. I transferred exactly half of the joint checking balance to a new account, following Maya's advice, and documented the amount. I did not touch the remaining $14,000 in savings. I changed the passwords to my personal email and medical portal. I removed as an authorized user from the credit card that had always been mine. I froze my credit. At 4:30 called. I let it ring once before answering. You filed for divorce. Yes. You served me at work. I made sure Lily would not see it. You made me look like a criminal. The petition says you transferred marital assets without my consent. You are destroying this family over money. No, I am protecting what is left because you refused to be honest. I was going to replace it with debt against our house. You did this without discussing it with me. The irony was so complete that I did not respond. He continued, withdraw it, we can go to counseling. Will you return the money? You know I cannot do that today. Will Melissa sign a secured repayment agreement? You know she cannot. Will you admit it was a gift? It was not. I have the gift acknowledgement. Silence. I regretted revealing it immediately, but the words had already left my mouth. What acknowledgement? The one Melissa signed for her lender. His breathing changed. You went through my files. The scanner saved a copy to our shared cloud drive. That was private. It documented money taken from our household. You had no right. I had every right to read a file saved in our shared account about our daughter's college fund. He hung up. 20 minutes later, the cloud folder disappeared. I called Maya. I told him about the document, and now the folder is gone. Do you still have your copies? Yes. Good, write down the time. Do not contact him about it. The deletion did not erase the evidence. It created another fact. That evening stayed at its house. He sent Lily a message saying he loved her and hoped she would not let adult conflict affect their relationship. Lily showed it to me. What do I say? You do not owe anyone an immediate answer. She typed deleted and finally wrote, I love you, I need time. Juniper Hall's lender had delayed the refinance. His guarantee might be enforced. Melissa needed another $20,000 to avoid default. Proposed selling one of our cars. I said no. He proposed borrowing from his retirement plan. Maya advised me not to negotiate privately. He accused me of wanting Melissa's business to fail. The truth was simpler. I no longer believed saving Juniper Hall would end the demands. A business can survive one crisis and create another. Sense of entitlement had no maturity date. Through temporary orders, was prohibited from making further major transfers or borrowing against the house. Financial discovery began. The 529 custodian produced statements, withdrawal records, and the archived secure messages. There it was. Message to customer support. I understand this is a non-qualified withdrawal and that taxes and penalties may apply. The funds are a gift to my sister for business stabilization. The beneficiary will not be reimbursed from the business. The representative had replied with a warning about the financial consequences and suggested consulting a tax professional. Confirmed that he wished to proceed. He had typed it himself. He had then looked me in the eyes and called it a temporary loan. Maya also requested records from his account and Juniper Hall. The transfers matched the scans. Melissa had used the money for delinquent property taxes, equipment debt, payroll, and a $12,000 renovation deposit for a bridal suite. Maya developed the settlement position. We would argue that the transfer constituted dissipation of marital assets for the benefit of his family and against the interests of the marriage. We would seek to credit the amount against share of home equity and retirement. We would also pursue repayment from Melissa and through a negotiated agreement, without promising that every dollar could be recovered from them directly. I thought of the message in the bank archive. For the first time since the basement flooded, I did not feel afraid of what might say. I wanted him to keep talking. The mediation took place in May. Arrived at the mediator's office with his lawyer, and Melissa did not need to attend, but she insisted because she claimed part of the money had passed through her account and she wanted the family's position represented. The mediator separated us at first. For 3 hours, proposals moved between conference rooms, offered to divide the house equity equally and restore $20,000 to the 529 over 5 years. 5 years, Lily would be almost finished with college. In return, he wanted me to waive any claim related to the rest of the withdrawal and agree that the transfers had been marital gifts made for family support. I rejected it. He then offered $30,000 over 7 years, without interest, contingent on his bonuses. I rejected that too. Temporary family loan. The same title. His attorney said had always intended that Melissa repay the funds after refinancing. The lack of a formal note reflected trust between siblings, not an intent to gift marital assets. Spoke next. Did you sign any document stating otherwise? Melissa looked at. Her lawyer was not present because she was not a party to the divorce. Touched her wrist. I signed something for the lender, Melissa said. It was a standard form. Maya placed the gift acknowledgement on the table. His face did not change immediately. He had already known I possessed it, however, stared at her own signature. Interrupted? The lender required proof that the money would not increase the business debt ratio. It did not change the family agreement. Where is the family agreement? Maya asked. He pointed to the spreadsheet. That was created after discovered the withdrawal, Maya said. Maya placed the archived bank message beside the gift acknowledgement. Looked at me. His expression was not guilt. It was betrayal, as if the bank and I had violated an agreement to forget what he had done. Maya read the message aloud. The funds are a gift to my sister for business stabilization. The beneficiary will not be reimbursed from the business. Melissa lowered her eyes. Said he was simplifying it for a bank employee. The mediator, who had spoken very little, looked at. Did you write this? Yes, but. And did you understand the question? Yes. Was the statement true when you wrote it? Glanced at his attorney. It was true for the bank's purpose. The mediator folded her hands. Truth does not normally change by audience. No one spoke. Maya continued with the printed email. We'll calm down once Lily gets her scholarship offers. Keep all paperwork between us until the HELOC is signed. Melissa pulled her wrist away from. You told me would never agree because she cared more about control than family, she said. His face became hard. This is not the place. It became the place when you signed my name beside yours. You signed it. Because said the money was his. His voice sharpened. It was marital money. So how to say? He stopped. The contradiction sat in front of him. If the money belonged to both of us, he needed my consent. If it belonged only to him, then his defense that it was a normal marital decision failed for a different reason. The mediator asked everyone, except the spouses and attorneys, to leave. Stood but did not move toward the door. This family will never recover from this, she told me. I answered quietly. You said the same thing when I refused to borrow against the house. What you meant was that Melissa might not recover without my money. Her face flushed. Melissa left without looking at me. When the door closed, his posture changed. The confidence went out of his shoulders. What do you want? He asked. It was the first honest question he had asked in months. I want Lily's education restored before we divide anything else, I said. I want the transfer charged against your share, not ours. I want no debt against the house. I want complete separation of our finances. And I want you to stop telling our daughter this happened because I refused to support the family. I never said that. Lily's text messages were in my folder. I did not need to show them. You told her I wanted a cheaper school. He looked away. His lawyer requested a private break. When they returned, looked at the table rather than at me. He agreed to most of the framework, but resisted the amount credited against his share. Maya opened the bank records again. By 5:30, he signed a term sheet. It was not the final divorce decree. It was not every dollar returned. But for the first time, the financial consequence of his decision belonged primarily to him. The final settlement took another 4 months. During that time, Juniper Hall missed 2 more payments. Melissa's refinance failed because the venue's revenue had been overstated and the existing debt was higher than new. Had not mortgaged her house, but she had co-signed one equipment loan. That was another lie exposed by paperwork. Her home had never been in immediate foreclosure. She had used the possibility to frighten and had used it to frighten me. Juniper Hall was listed for sale in July. Melissa blamed the market, the lender, a former manager, and finally, she did not blame herself until much later. Under our divorce settlement, I kept the house and refinanced the remaining mortgage into my name. Received less equity because the court-approved agreement credited the unauthorized transfers and tax consequences against his share. A direct rollover from his retirement division funded a new custodial education account for Lily. Combined with the money remaining in the original $529, my savings and Lily's scholarship, her first 3 years were covered. The 4th year would require careful planning, but not the impossible debt she had feared. Assumed the tax liability from the non-qualified distribution. He also signed an enforceable obligation to contribute a fixed amount each month toward Lily's education until the agreed balance was restored. The payment came automatically from his paycheck. And Melissa signed their own agreement after Maya made it clear that refusing would not erase the transfer records. The agreement attached repayment to any sale proceeds from Juniper Hall and required monthly payments in the meantime. Called me in August. I hope you're satisfied, she said. I was standing in Lily's room, helping her decide which books to take to campus. I am relieved, I said. Melissa may lose the venue. Melissa used money that was not offered to her. Offered it. He was not the only person it belonged to. You have broken him. No, he is living with a financial decision he made. Began to cry. I am sorry you are hurting, I said. The repayment agreement remains. She hung up. In September, Juniper Hall sold to a restaurant group. The sale price was lower than Melissa wanted but high enough to satisfy the primary lender and produce a modest remainder. $38,000 came to the repayment account. When I saw the deposit, I sat at the kitchen table where had once promised that my mother's gift would stay with Lily. I expected triumph. What I felt was grief. The money had returned, but the trust attached to it had not. Lily came home that weekend with laundry and 3 stories about her anatomy class. I showed her the updated education balance. She stared at the number. Is this from the venue? Yes. Does Aunt Melissa hate us? I don't know. Do you hate her? I considered the question. No, but I no longer confuse forgiveness with access. Lily nodded as if she understood more than I wanted her to understand at 17. Began attending counseling alone. He sent me a letter through the co-parenting app because I had asked him not to deliver emotional messages through Lily. He wrote that he had spent his life believing love meant preventing his mother and sister from experiencing consequences. Every rescue made the next request easier. When I refused, he treated me as the obstacle rather than the only person telling him the truth. Our divorce became final in October, at the courthouse, and I stood in the hallway after signing the last pages. I thought I could fix it before you found out, he said. That was part of the betrayal. I know. You decided the risk was acceptable because Lily and I would absorb it. He looked down. I know that too. There was no satisfying speech left to give him. The payback was not humiliation. It was allocation. The debt went to the person who created it. The responsibility returned to the people who benefited. The house could not be used as a second rescue. Lily's future was no longer a family emergency fund. And I no longer needed everyone to agree that my boundary was reasonable before I enforced it. 1 year after I found the empty accounts, the basement wall was finally repaired. For months, the unfinished drywall had reminded me of the pipe that exposed everything. I kept postponing the work because college forms, legal appointments, and ordinary life always seemed more urgent. When the contractor finished, I painted the wall myself. Lily chose the color over video call. She was in her second semester and doing well. She had changed her minor, joined a student volunteer program, and learned that dorm washing machines accepted payment only through an app that never worked when she needed it. Normal problems. I had never been so grateful for normal problems. The education account was not exactly what it would have been without the withdrawal. Taxes, penalties, market changes, and legal fees left scars that no settlement could erase. But Lily was enrolled without private high-interest loans, and the remaining plan was manageable. Made every required payment. His relationship with Lily improved slowly. She agreed to have dinner with him twice a month. She refused to discuss my choices with him, and he eventually stopped trying. Missed 3 repayment installments, then caught up after Maya sent a formal notice. She never apologized to me. Her last message said she hoped I was proud of choosing money over family. I did not answer. Melissa closed Juniper Hall and took a job managing events for a hotel. 6 months after the sale, she mailed Lily a handwritten card with a check for $500. The card said, I told myself the money was temporary because that made accepting it easier. I should have asked you and your mother directly. I am sorry. Lily deposited the check into her textbook account. She did not write back immediately. I told her she could forgive on her own schedule. She could also accept an apology without restoring the relationship to what it had been. As for me, I learned that financial betrayal rarely begins with a dramatic theft. It begins with exemptions. Just this once. They need it more. You will understand later. We are family. Each sentence asks you to surrender a small piece of your right to know. By the time the amount becomes large, the person taking it has already practiced treating your consent as unnecessary. I also learned that evidence can be an act of self-respect. Statements, messages, contracts, dates, none of them were cold. They protected me from being argued out of my own memory. For months, family told me I had destroyed everything over money. But the money was never the deepest wound. The deepest wound was that knew I would say no, so he created a plan that required my ignorance. He counted on love to keep me quiet after the facts were irreversible. He was wrong. I did not scream at a wedding. I did not expose anyone online. I did not ruin Juniper Hall. I simply stopped volunteering my future to protect decisions I had not made. Sometimes the most satisfying revenge is not watching someone suffer. It is watching the consequence finally stop at the correct door. So tell me this. If your spouse emptied your child's college account for a sibling and promised to replace it later, would you give the marriage one final chance? Or would the secret transfer be the moment you walked away?